Hey everyone, in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to set up animation using Krita. Alright, so in Krita you're going to go ahead and click on Start New File, and I recommend these settings right here, 1920 by 1080 with 72. That will give you HD quality animation. Click on Create, and you're greeted here with your standard Krita interface. So then come up here, and in the top right, you'll see this little button here. This is called the Workspace button. And you'll notice that one of them right here is called Animation. And what that does is it hides a couple of Docker toolbars and shows you a couple new ones. Down here, you'll see some animation controls. And then down at the very bottom, very importantly, you'll see the timeline. Unfortunately, it takes away our brushes, so let's bring those back. So to bring any Docker back or hide it, you're going to simply come up here to the Settings menu, Dockers, and then you have to know what the name is of the toolbar or Docker that you want. So I'm just going to go up here to Brush Presets, and there it is over there. You can animate with any brush in Krita, which makes it that much more powerful. For this tutorial, I recommend that you do scroll up to the top, and I recommend that you start off with these pencils. I'm going to go ahead and click on this blue one here, and I believe that's called the Pencil 1 Hard. There we go. Okay. The next thing you're probably missing is the color picker. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that we have three tabs here. We have Layers, we have Tool Options, and then we have Advanced Color Selector. So there you are. It is there. For now, I'd recommend that you just pick a color to get started with. I'm going to go ahead and set up something like that. Okay. And then make sure you go back to Layers, because we're going to need our Layers Docker here pretty soon. Okay, we're almost ready to animate. Down here at the bottom, at the top of the timeline, you see a little set of dots here, it looks like. And if you put your mouse pointer right on there, you can hold down your left mouse button and drag up and down, and you can resize the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring mine up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. On a Mac, you can press Command 0, and that will auto-fit your entire canvas, which is really nice. Also on a Mac, you can press Command minus and zoom out, Command plus and zoom in. On a Windows machine, you can just do Control 0 and Control minus and Control plus, and that will zoom in, zoom out, and auto-fit. All right, let's animate. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is down here in the timeline, just to make things a little easier for you viewing at home, right next to the timeline, you'll see a little teeny tiny double arrow. It's right here. And if you click and drag to the right, you will zoom in on your timeline. And you can see how the spaces are getting a little bit larger, and you're seeing some more numbers. So even if you don't need to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do that just so it's a little easier for all of you to see. Okay, so at the top of the timeline, you'll see all of these numbers, and those are your frames. This is where your frames and your keyframes will go. You'll also see down here in your timeline, you'll see all of your layers that you currently have. And we have our background canvas, that's the white canvas, and we have a paint layer. This is where you'll actually be drawing, and this is what you should have selected right now. Then you'll see up here in your layers, it's the same thing. You have your paint layer 1 selected, and that's what you'll be animating on. And of course, you can add more layers by clicking on this little square with a plus sign in it, but that's for later on. Above the timeline here, we get into the animation controls. This bigger box here shows you what frame you're currently on. And if I come down here to timeline and I click on frame 4, you'll see that it updates itself. You can also, if you put your mouse pointer above the timeline where the numbers are, you can click and drag, and you can do what's called shuttling or jogging through. You're scrubbing through your timeline. So kind of like playing, but just going through. So there I'm scrubbing through the timeline. You can also jump to a certain frame. If you want to click over here and you want to type in 25, press return, you'll see that it automatically jumps over to frame 25. Okay, back to frame 0. You've got your start and end frames over here. It always starts off at 0 and ends on 100, but I can go ahead and I can change that. I typically recommend leaving your start frame at 0, and for today I'm going to go ahead and just change my ending frame. I'm going to change it to 24. There we go. Make sure you hit return after you type in those numbers. Okay, down here in the bottom right, you'll see that we have the play speed set to 1, which just means normal speed. I don't recommend changing it very much. You want normal speed. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to change the play speed to fix the timing in your animation. So if your animation is too slow or too fast, you should fix that with more frames or less frames in your animation. Don't slow down the total speed or speed it up just to correct that. Okay, that's kind of a beginner's mistake. Okay, so I'm on frame 0 selected, and I come out here and I'm just going to go ahead and draw a ball. So when you draw, now down here in frame 0, if I click away, you'll see that I now have a blue square here. So that's an actual drawn frame. So the way that Krita works is I have a setting turned on, and it's turned on by default, that when you click on an empty frame and then you go ahead and you draw, it adds in a new frame. But if you see, watch this, let me go ahead and draw another one. You'll see that if I go through here, let's see what it looks like. So the second one gets added, and then the third one gets added, but the previous ones are still there. So it is animating. There are changes that are happening, but it's not quite what I want. The ball isn't actually moving through space. So there's a setting that's turned on by default that's doing that, and you might not want that turned on. So that's these 6 buttons down here. So the button that's doing that is this middle one here. It says auto frame mode, and it's set to on. And what that means is it means when you click on a blank space on the timeline and then you draw something on the screen, it will automatically create a new frame for you right there. But it's not a blank frame. It's adding on. So you might not want that. I typically turn it off. So let's remove these keyframes here. So you're to remove a keyframe, you're going to click on it to select it, and then you're going to come over here and you're going to tap on this third icon here that has a little slash going through it. So tap, and you can see it disappeared. So select it, tap. Okay, now let's say you want to select multiple keyframes at the same time. You can select one, you can then hold down the shift key and then select the last one that you want. And when you hold down shift, it selects all the keyframes or all the frames in between. So I have all 3 of these selected here. Now I'll click on remove, and you'll see that all of those were cleared out. Okay, so I'm back on frame 1, and what I suggest you do as a beginner with animation is get to the frame you want to draw on, and let's click on this very first one here. This is called Add Blank Frame. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Blank Frame, and I'm going to turn this feature off. I'm going to turn this auto blank frame or this auto frame off. Okay, so that way it doesn't do that. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw the ball, and you can now see that it fills in. So once again, I turned this feature off. Let's just hover over it, and you can see it is turned off. Okay, so now I'm on frame 2, and what I want to do is I want to add in a new blank frame, and that's really important. And when I click here and add a new blank frame in, you'll see that it gets rid of the first drawing. And so now I'm starting off from scratch. So I can go ahead and I can draw it over here. And then I'll go to frame 4, add a new blank frame. You really have to wait for it to disappear to let you know you can start drawing. And I'll go ahead and add it down here. And that's it. So the steps are: select a new frame in the timeline, click this button here to add a new blank frame, draw your drawing, and then that's it. So now if I go back to frame 1 and I press this triangle here, which is play, you'll see it's actually animated. So I have 4 keyframes, and notice how I animated every other frame. So I've got it at 0, 2, 4, and 6. That's called animating on 2s, and that's because I'm animating every other frame, and all my keyframes are on even numbers. What that does is it means that the animation stays on screen a little bit longer, stays on screen for 2 frames, and I don't have to draw quite as much. Okay, so that's good. And I'll press stop. So because I changed my end frame to 24, when I press play, it's playing 0 through 24. If yours is still at 100, you're going to see your animation play, and then it's going to just show you a whole bunch of nothing. So change your end frame if you haven't done so already. Okay, so now let's talk about onion skinning. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here to frame 8. I'm going to add a blank frame. Now, for animators, it's essential to be able to see the previous drawings, the previous frames, so I can know where I basically came from. So what you can do is down here where my layers are, I have the name of the layer, and then I have some of these icons here. So we have the little eyeball here, which hides or shows our layer. And then at the end of these icons, it's really small, but there's a little light bulb here. And if you click on that little light bulb, tap it once, you'll now see some red ghosted previews of your previous drawings. And watch what happens when I click and I go backwards. When I go backwards, you'll see, there we go. You'll see, you'll now see some red and green. Okay, so here's what you're looking at. The red shows previous drawings. The black that you see here shows the current frame that I'm on. And then the green shows you future drawings. So it shows you where you're going, right? So it feels a little bit like you're playing with time. Oh, and you are. It feels very powerful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and come over here. I'm on frame 8. I'm going to click to add a new blank frame. And because I know this is where I last was, now I can go ahead and I can start drawing and figure it out. And this is really where you can get into the principles of animation called timing and spacing. Now, it does get annoying to have to tap down here with your stencil, your stylus. I am using a tablet and a stylus for this, and then going back over here and clicking on this button here. So in the next video, I will show you how to set up keyboard shortcuts, which is very helpful. I will tell you that you can use the left and right arrow keys. So what I can do is I'm going to go ahead and press the right arrow key. Oops, let me draw there. So I'm going to press the arrow key Let me just draw first. So I'm going to press with the right arrow once, twice. Then I can just tap to create a new frame, draw. So that definitely makes life a little easier. But I will show you in the next video how to set up keyboard shortcuts. It really helps. Okay, cover a few more basics here. Let's say you want to move some of these keyframes. It's real simple. So you just tap and select on a keyframe, you click and drag, and move your frame forwards or backwards. Okay? Real simple. If you want to select and move multiple frames, you can do that. So for instance, I can select that frame right there, that's frame 20. I can hold down the Shift key, and then I can select that frame, and you see it's selected that range of frames, and then I can just left mouse click and drag forwards or backwards. It sometimes has trouble. I'm not sure why. What I need to do is when I have a range selected like this, I can't click on this first frame and drag it backwards like that. I have to click and, if I want to go to the right, if I want to move them to the right, I need to click and drag from the rightmost frame and have it go that way, and then it kind of knows what direction I want to go in. There we go. There we go. Okay. So some of these other buttons over here that we haven't really touched upon, and then we'll wrap up here. So this is the add blank frame. You're going to use that one probably the most. This next one is a duplicate frame. So for instance, if I want to have this frame and I want to copy it, I can go ahead and I can duplicate it. The duplicate frame works in a little bit of a weird way, in my opinion. So what it does is you go to an empty frame where you want the duplicate to go, and then you just click duplicate frame. And what it does is it automatically grabs the frame before it. But you might not want that. So I think copying and pasting is actually a little better. So what you can do is you simply select the frame that you want to copy, and then if you right mouse click on the frame, you get a menu, and you can just choose copy to clipboard, click in an open space where you want it to go, right mouse click again, and then paste from clipboard. And so you'll see that now it fills it in. That's more advanced because it allows you to select any of these previous keyframes and then paste it over here. Okay, so I think that's a little bit more flexible. This next icon here looks like an onion. This is what everybody gets mixed up on. If you click on this, you see this cool little panel that pops up. Everybody thinks that this is what turns on onion skinning down here in your timeline, and it doesn't. The little light bulb turns on onion skinning. These are the onion skinning settings. So you can choose how many frames you see before and how many frames you see after. These bars show you the opacity. So I can click and I can drag these bars up and down, and you'll see that the transparency changes. So you can see them greater or less. Okay. You can click the bar and you won't see it as much. And then you can change the color. If you don't like red and green, you can click down here and you can change the color to something that's a little easier for your eyes. I think the defaults are set up very nicely for almost all animations, so you can do that there. We already turned this off, auto frame mode, and then the very last one here, I would leave this on. It's called drop frames, and that basically just means that when you press play on your animation, if your computer is having trouble keeping up playing back your animation, it will drop a frame or skip a frame so that it can play back at a normal speed. Chances are you won't notice it, but you'll notice if your animation is not playing back at a normal speed because it'll look like it's playing slow and lagging and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I hope this helps you get started with your animation. Remember, once you get the hang of animating, you can come over here and you can start animating any of these really amazing brushes like watercolors and etc. Okay, remember to save. You want to go up here to File, Save. You want to click over here on the left-hand side and select your folder. You then want to go and double-click on your desktop so you can save on your desktop folder. Come down here, and I'll just call this First Animation, and then press Save, and save often. Okay, I hope this helps you out, and happy animating.